Jennifer Kircher Carr is a fiction writer whose work has been published in numerous literary journals, including Prairie Schooner, Alaska Quarterly, the Nebraska Review. She's also won the Fiction Prize. Her work has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize.
Wow.
Her nonfiction is published in Poets and Writers, Plowshares Online, and North American Review, among others. And she will be teaching advanced fiction here at Writers and Books starting in the winter term here in January. So you'll want to sign up for that. A little known fact about her is that she believes her dog can understand English. So she talks to her dog like a human. She will be reading a piece called The American Dream, Circa 1924. Welcome, Jennifer. Is it going? Okay.
I imagine that my immigrant grandfather's life was a version of the American dream. A ranch house in the nice suburb, occasional trips to Florida, a pickup truck and a fishing boat, tomatoes in the garden, baseball on TV. But what had he wanted or expected when he boarded the ship Dresden in Germany in 1924? That year you could still board a ship with a dream and little else, then enter New York City Harbor via Ellis Island, with the Statue of Liberty as a beacon of hope. Hope was the common factor in every immigrant's experience. I know immigration through Ellis Island is steeped with controversy that offsets romantic conceptions of starry-eyed bystanders like me. I know that immigrants face poverty, language barriers, prejudice, violence, loneliness. But I also know that my grandfather's name is etched on one of the bricks that line the island, Albert Kircher. To me, it's a touchstone. To come to America at 17, my grandfather had to make a decision. As a minor, he wasn't allowed to make the trip unless he had a parent's permission. His mother would only give him permission for a visit. The year before, a German uncle had previously immigrated to America, had returned to Germany for a visit, flush with cash and bravado from oil fields in Oklahoma. So at 17, my grandfather lies to his mother. He tells her that he is going to visit the uncle. Does he think he might return? Or as he boards the ship Dresden, does he realize he will never come back? Does he plan he will never come back? In America, he does visit the uncle in Oklahoma, but from the German community there, he learns about Rochester, New York, the thriving German community here, and the prospects of work at companies like Eastman Kodak and Bausch & Lomb. So the family lore goes that when Al arrived in Rochester, he learned Mr. Bausch's home address and showed up at the door in a three-piece suit on a Sunday morning. Mr. Bausch's wife answered the door, and upon hearing this fellow German's tale, she told my young grandfather, "You show up for work tomorrow morning, and my husband will have a job for you." Al worked at Bausch & Lomb for about a year, but his real desire was to have something of his own. In Germany, the 7th of 12 children, he would never inherit the family farm. So he had apprenticed in blacksmithing. In Rochester, he used his apprenticeship to secure a job at Rochester Wagon Works, where he made the metal band that fit outside the wagon wheel. It was there that he met his future business partner. When Al was in his early 20s and his partner in his early 60s, they purchased the business. They stopped making horse-drawn wagons and started building truck bodies. Within a couple of years, Al bought out his partner so he could finally fulfill his dream to have his own business. One of his early customers was Haloid Photographic Company, which would later become Xerox. More family lore. Haloid purchased 2 truck bodies and tried to pay my grandfather in stock. My grandfather refused. A man wants to get paid cash for his work, he said. In the days that Xerox stock was in demand, my relatives would tell this story over the dinner table, shaking their heads. But despite this misstep, my grandfather grew a respectable business and always paid his employees cash at the end of the week. While my grandfather immigrated to Rochester from Germany, my grandmother, Alice, immigrated here from Minnesota. You might think that immigrated is a grandiose word for a cross-country move, but to listen to my grandparents talk about their experiences, you'd think that my grandmother's move was a much bigger deal. While my grandfather chose his fate to come here, my grandmother came initially as a proxy for her family. Her parents, farmers in Minnesota, had heard rumors about the farmland in western New York, and they sent her to see if the rumors were true, and if the whole family should move. While she stayed, the family as a whole never made the move. My grandmother yearned for Minnesota, for the farmland there, for her siblings, and never fully got over her homesickness. She loved to tell the story of how, as children, they would hike to where the Mississippi River began and leap across it, shouting, "I'm jumping over the mighty Mississippi." The American dream. What did my grandfather want coming here? What did he expect? My grandmother had recounted stories of the voyage, the dinners at the German Hall, the successful blacksmithing, then truck body business. Maybe because I am the grandchild instead of the child, I don't hear the other experiences. What was it like for my grandfather to be here while we fought Germany, his homeland, in World War II? I know he refused to serve. He refused to fight his brothers. He was relieved of duty due to poor eyesight, but this is something my family did not talk about. My grandfather had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, but I think of the 3 children, the ones that I grew up with, my dad and my aunt and my uncle. My grandfather's oldest daughter passed away when she was 14. My grandmother talked about her all the time, but my grandfather never did, not to me. My father tells me that my grandfather never spoke German in the house, only English. He didn't want anyone to mistake him for a Nazi sympathizer. He also wanted his children to assimilate, to belong. After World War II, however, each Sunday, my grandfather led his family in putting together a care package to send to family in Germany. My father, as a boy, cranked the handle on the coffee grinder to grind coffee beans. Then they packed in a box with bags of flour and sugar. My grandfather topped each box with a single Hershey's candy bar. Though my grandfather didn't talk to me about his immigration, my grandmother talked about it. Surviving black and white photos from his arrival in New York City Harbor show a dapper young man with slicked wavy hair and an open expression in a 3-piece suit on the shores of New York City Harbor with an enormous ship looming behind him. With a smile, another shows him on the ship with smiling young ladies on either arm. Irish, my grandmother told me. Holding a life ring with the ship's name. On the back of the photo, my grandmother had written in her careful cursive script, "Ale and some friends on the ship Dresden." History reshaped in my grandmother's retelling, as it does in all of ours. When I ask my father to retell the old stories, sooner or later there are huge gaps, parts that are lost to time, parts that he remembers differently than someone else. Why did Grandpa leave Oklahoma and move to Rochester, and when? Was it a month or a year after his arrival? What did he tell his mother about not returning to Germany? Here's where things get murky, my father tells me. My grandmother is gone now. I ask my father these questions and others. I ask about Grandpa's first job. I ask about his wagon company and how it turned into a truck body company. I ask about the years before the war, the years after the war, the years before Grandma. But there are large chunks gone and we pick at threads, pick at dust. Where do these experiences go if we don't remember? Who will retell the stories if we don't tell them? There's a story I must tell you, an image I want you to remember along with me, of my grandfather dancing with my grandmother. I don't want it lost to time. But it's not what you imagine on the surface. It starts when my grandmother contracted polio in her early 30s. At the time, she had 2 young children at home. Her eldest was still alive, and her youngest was not yet born. My father was a baby. My grandmother was hospitalized for more than 2 years, and when she returned home, finally, she'd lost her right side to paralysis and could no longer walk. This was in the days before physical therapy as we know it, but my grandfather had his own. Each night after dinner, he hoists his wife upright and loops both of their waists together with leather belts. With her feet on his, she laces her arms around his neck, clasping the dead hand with the good one. Then my grandfather steps backward so that my grandmother steps forward, in this way forcing movement into her limbs. When I think of my grandparents, this is the image I remember, one that I've never seen, but is only stitched together from words handed down. This strange dance joining a boy from Steinbach, Germany, with a girl from Butler, Minnesota, that has become part of my heritage. To me, this image represents more than what we see on the surface about how the American dream was realized for my grandfather, the business, the home, the tomatoes in the garden, baseball on TV. To me, it symbolizes the core of the American dream, to love and live freely, and how time and chance collide with actions and choice and tie our stories together.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, these stories do need to be told and remembered. Thank you. We're going to take a short intermission before our last two stories, so please help yourself to some refreshments. I will open a few more bottles of wine.